Welcome to a talk and a discussion about innovation and a cluster for innovation in Sweden. We will present and discuss different parts of our organization and how we are devoted into innovation. My name is Magnus Falk and I'm a product leader at the Research Institute of Sweden and in Smart Housing. I'll try to guide you through this talk. We who arranged this program, we are part of the innovation cluster Smart Housing Småland that was founded 2013, and the core fundings are from the Swedish Agency for Innovation and the 3 regions in the south of Sweden called Jönköping, Kalmar and Kronoberg regions. And the core target is in construction of wood and glass. And we have the core focus on the south of Sweden, but we have activities all over Sweden and also abroad. Our first participant in the panel is a researcher with the name of Mikael Ludvigsson. He works for Research Institute of Sweden and Smart Housing. And you have the core focus in the material glass and wood constructions. And you were one of the co-creators of Smart Housing in the 2013. Please give us an introduction of the background.
Yeah, thanks, Magnus. The most interesting thing for me with Smart Housing is that it's in a cluster of many clusters funded roughly like the way you described with the so-called Winvex system in Sweden, where we have the strength of belonging to these different interesting areas. But me, myself, I'm in charge of internationalization within the Smart Housing cluster and working with that more and more. Because planetary boundaries, global warming, biodiversity and so on are challenges that we face, and they are immensely important to solve for humanity, and therefore we have to solve them in a way that is done not like before in a linear way, but in a co-creative way with cross-disciplinary work, which we have done since the start of our cluster in 2013. And we will describe how we work in a triple helix way and so on. And we welcome you to follow us during this little presentation of our cluster.
Thank you, Mikael. And we move on in the setup here in the studio. I now introduce Linda Camara, Director of Operations and Architect at the Tengbom Architects. You were part of the, so to say, Smart Housing family from the very beginning. And you've been involved in many projects and innovation processes. And I'm glad you were able to participate here today. So could you please tell us the background and the start of this innovation project that we will talk more about with the name of H6, please?
Yes, yeah, it was, I don't remember the year now, but we had just finalized a project where we had done a one residential module. Showed it. We had done a cooperation work with a lot of meetings between different kind of businesses and different kind of consultants competencies. And it was a great success. And we wanted to do the next project, but started to think maybe this time we had to go for a real project that should really be built, because we understood that the questions would be much harder and we would need to be more innovative to really make it happen. After a short period, the company Obos, that was also in the board, came and said that we want to own this project, and we were picked as architects at Tengbom. And we started to found a team that could combine innovation, cooperation between different disciplines, and see to all the regulations of legislation, producing modules, construction, materials, etc. And to see how do we solve this with really high ambition. High ambitions on architecture, high ambition on innovation, and also see that this can really be finalized. We found a plot in Kalmar that had all those things that we needed: high ambitions, a new area, quite soon finalized and ready to be built, so we thought at least. And the project started. We were working in it for several years with a lot of interesting sub-projects that Mikael and JP will talk about later. And we learned a lot during the process. But one of the hard things that we didn't know was that the process from the municipality and the overall planning wasn't that finalized as we thought. So we are still looking forward to the realized project.
Thank you for that introduction and the background, how it all started out. And you will be back in the program and describe more later on. And now I'd like to return to Mikael and describe what Linda just mentioned, that there were a number of sub-projects. Give us a general idea of how it developed, Mikael.
Yeah, we visualized this project as with a fishbone diagram, one can say, where the small sub-projects, they are guided to the main project, the H6 project. And by creating this and innovating already from the start, from day one, with different projects, like solar cells, looking at that, which at this time was not that common to have in the normal housing, not as today, where we are now. And also virtual reality was a very fresh technology where we started looking at from day one in the project. And thereby we could make spin-off and spin-off and spin-off on these first, so to say, seed projects we started. And other projects were, for example, flexible walls. It was simulations of prefabricated housing, and also glass and wood laminations for facades.
There were a mix of various aspects and innovation areas, and we will now look into more of those sub-projects. So I'd like to introduce Xiao Pereira, even called JP here. Exactly. You're the office manager at Tengbom, and you also been responsible architect for this H6 building. You've been also involved in some of the sub-projects. So please give us the general idea of the H6 building and then some of the sub-projects, please.
Yes, thank you for the invitation. Let's start with the H6 building. It's a housing block to be built in Kalmar. The interesting aspect is that it's entirely built in the factory. The factory lies in the middle of Småland. It's a prefabricated building where all the modules are built in the factory and then assembled on site in Kalmar. The building on site, or the assemblage on site, will take 8 weeks. This H6 housing block was the platform for several sub-projects of smart housing. One of the first was the movable walls, as Mikael mentioned. And the movable walls had as a strong idea, how can we break these rigid walls that everyone has in their households, and how these movable walls can adapt to the different daily use of the persons in the apartment. So from night to day, can walls move? Can the layouts change? And it was probably the project where we went more in advance, and we went from a research stage to a trial stage where we had several users trying the flexible wall and coming back with ideas, feedback, so we can move on to the next stage. Another sub-project that we've worked with is a combination of wood and glass. These two materials are very historical, traditional materials in Småland. So can we work them together to create new facades, new solutions for our designs? One of our main options was to bring exactly this combination of wood and glass to the facade of the H6 housing block.
Good. Thank you for those interesting descriptions of sub-projects and the core project itself, H6. And I found the flexible wall very interesting myself, so I would very much like to see that in reality.
I myself tested in our pilot apartment, and it was really interesting to see how easily it could be used.
Wonderful. Look forward to that myself. And now we thank you so far, JP. And now we move over to and back to Mikael. You were also involved in 2 other sub-projects. Please give us a short description of those.
Yeah, remembering that virtual reality was a very fresh technology in those days, we tried and tested this for these purposes in the housing industry, where one can demonstrate for a buyer, or the construction company can show many potential buyers with this virtual reality technology. And we tried out new so-called engines, software engines developed at these times that were used. And going from the virtual reality domain, it was thereafter possible to come to the augmented reality, where you mix the so-called the software phase with real life, and you can see the objects in front of you in a totally different way. And that was the first spin-off, actually. And the next spin-off was oralization, where you also mix in sound and you put on headphones. So when you enter this virtual augmented room, you can also simulate the sound from roads outside of the house, a beach, a waterfall, a train coming by, or whatever you want, actually. And this have been used, and it's in use in this company's 20 sales offices across Sweden, and it's also been tested in prototypes layouts in the production lines, where you can see, for example, the electrical cabling within the floor once at the same time as it is mounted and prepared for in the factory. Moreover, we looked at simulating and doing calculations on the prefabricated housing modules for the first time at the Linnaeus University, where these calculations also gave more spin-off projects and more funding for even larger projects. Yet another example where a small project can be a seed for larger projects, so to say. And in these projects, the larger projects, it was possible to compare the theoretical simulations with practical life-size sampled testing of their stability and static loads and so on. And this work is continuous, and it's ongoing at present also now.
Thank you. Interesting to hear about, for me at least, this virtual reality and how far it has gone into both sales and construction. So thanks for that presentation. Now I'm curious and would like to address Linda from Tengboms once again, because I'm thinking of, you have a quite big organization, a lot of skills within the body of your organization, but still, what's the need and the help in your business development for joining this innovation cluster as Smart Housing? Please tell us a little bit of that benefits.
I mean, the name is an innovation cluster, and it really helps you or us as a company to be more innovative. We try to be innovative in all our daily work, but we are still working with one type of clients, or have our traditional methods, and we have to be efficient. And this being, when we go into a cooperation and a project in an innovation cluster, we need to open up a little bit and meet other kind of people and other kind of businesses, and that helps us a lot. For example, when I started in Smart Housing, I mean, it's almost over 10 years ago now, then the prefabrication industry, they didn't want to work with architects. So we never, even if I would have liked to work with them, I couldn't do it, because they said, we don't need you, and maybe they didn't, because their clients, they said, we want something cheap, we want something temporary, and we want something that goes really fast to build. And so, no, there was no need for this extra thing that we could add. And we as architects were a little bit afraid to go to the prefabrication industry or to do something that could be transformed to prefabrication, because we were afraid that they would take over our project and throw us out. And it was first when I started in Smart Housing, I started to meet people in a deeper way and with other discussions that we started to find each other in a better way and to see we could gain of cooperation. We can do the other projects as well, but we could also find projects where we can learn and innovate together.
Wonderful to hear this transformation in cooperation and also the innovation process, how that has been developed. And now I'd like all of us to go over to a dialogue and have some kind of reflection part. And I will start with some questions or comments, and you will give me your point of view in these various aspects that is coming. Smart Housing has a mix in the network of prefabricated constructors, as we've heard of, architects, window and door manufacturers, and so on. And it's much of a wide network. But how would you describe the cooperation process? Xiao, what's your experience, for example, from the H6 project of this network?
Yeah, I see Smart Housing as a lab. I mean, scientists have labs where they can research, meet, discuss. We don't have those platforms. So Smart Housing can be, in fact, a laboratory for all these partners to discuss, to develop, to come up with new ideas. I strongly believe that.
Thank you. Mikael?
Yeah, and as such a platform, it's important to involve all actors within society in the so-called triple helix system, where you have the society, you have the sciences, and you have the business itself. So they can work together in co-creative processes where we can learn all the time. And it can even come to the quadruple helix system, where we involve the citizens also, the human beings that live and breathe within society, so to say. So we can have a platform for discovering not only habitats, technology and so on, but life itself, really.
Any further comment, reflection?
Yeah, but I've been thinking of that a lot since when I've been working in Smart Housing, that you meet politicians and people at the regions and municipalities in a different setting, and the academy as well. And that gives you a better understanding for the processes from their perspectives. And that helps me in my normal day of work as well.
May I continue on that track, Linda? What the regions and municipalities' contribution to this process? What do they put on the table, so to speak?
For me, it's when you sit as an architect in your company, you see a lot of development, you read the society, what's happening, what are the trends, where are we going. But then when you hear the regions, sometimes they are a little bit ahead of you, and you see they have the same thoughts and they want the same thing. They present it in a little bit different way, but it also helps us to see that we steer in the right directions.
Thanks. Xiao, JP?
Yeah, I could say that the municipalities, they see Smart Housing as more than a business. It's not the core of this research group to do business. Is to develop society, to develop innovation projects. And the regions we work with, they see that quite clearly, and that's a strong asset, I would say.
Thank you. Mikael, what's your relation to regions and municipalities?
Yeah, they are very important in this triple helix system because they have the framework and the boundaries for the long-term development of the nation, the region, the municipality, the district, so to say, in general. And that can guide us when we sit together in co-creative processes where we solve problems together. We not only have asked for permission to do a thing, or anything, but we actually work together to solve these larger challenges within society. And we can have this, we can think of the larger challenges like the planetary boundaries, biodiversity, and natural resources and global warming, because that's all there all the time, actually. So the regions and municipalities, they are very important in these kind of projects.
Further comments, reflections? And we move on. I'm thinking of talking about the triple or quadruple helix, about the science role, for example, Research Institute of Sweden, the local or other universities spread all over Sweden or internationally. What do they contribute in these co-creative projects, methods, experiments or studies? Mikael, would you like to give that picture?
Yeah, I mean, you can look at innovation as both being about technological innovations and development, or behavioral change of attitudes and so on. The innovation is not only technology and smarter services and so on. And science comes in also with their long-term focus on developing and researching about the larger challenges, the more complex problems. And by involving science together with the business, together with architects, together with the regions and municipalities, we can gain this force of nature somehow, where we can really work with these problems in a cross-disciplinary way. Yet again, together.
And I think that is important, because if we look at us and all the private sector, we have this really short-term perspective. And as you said, the university, they have the long-term perspective, and they can go into details in a totally different way than we can. And I think that is why this gets as an innovation cluster, because we all have different time perspectives, we have different needs to fulfill our own agendas, and when we meet and try to do a project together, then we mix all those perspectives and new ideas, both that we get a better understanding for each other, but we also get better ideas together. Thank you.
Xiao, JP?
I can give you a concrete example. I mean, usually us as architects are the ones that drive the innovation. In this case, it was slightly different, because our client Tobos was part of this development group. They were the ones coming back to us we have this idea of doing a movable wall. Can you guys do something with this? Or we have this idea of integrating solar cells in facades. How could we do this in the H6 project? And that's why, for instance, we came back with this solution where we have this green volume in the middle of the building, which is a greenhouse with integrated solar cells that has a special color to highlight it. So in a normal process, this innovation comes only from one side. In this process that we are talking about, it comes from everyone on the table.
Good, thank you. I move on to another aspect. We might have been touching it recently. To work cross-disciplinary outside your own organization, your own company, like working in the smart housing innovation process, what difference and what's the added value in that specific kind of process? Linda, would you reflect?
Yeah, I would say there is a lot of different values of that. One thing is that you can share the risks. Even if you share the honor in the end, you also share the risks. And I mean, to go into those kind of projects, yeah, you have to risk a little bit, and it's good to share it. And then I think for the future, we cannot see that we are our own companies working for ourselves and compete with everyone else. The society doesn't work like that anymore. You have to cooperate with a lot of different disciplines, and even if we are a really big architect company, we don't have all the competences that we need to cooperate with within our firm. So of course you need to start to think different about doing businesses when you want how to share, dare to share, etc.
Thank you. JP, reflections?
Yeah, I hope this can be the birth of something new. I see the prefabrication factories as really as having a huge potential for us architects to create new products, new projects, and not only for the south of Sweden, but hopefully to be something that we could export to pretty much all across the globe.
Yeah, and added value is also, we can see that when we do cross-disciplinary projects within smart housing, we see that even within the university, we connect connections, so to say, within that organization. We find that within regions and municipalities, we connect also intra-municipal and intra-regional within their organizations, and sometimes they don't even know that they are touching each other's line of work and projects and challenges. And also I would like to stress, quite focused, that we learn from each other also, because suddenly we know more and more what the challenge for an architect is. What is the challenge with a regional innovation strategy, for example? Suddenly you realize what these people and the colleagues within society, what they are standing in front of, and we can work yet again together.
Good, thank you. Next aspect, I'm thinking on various comments you made in the dialogue here about the process and the result. Two core sentence here. And I'm thinking like this: why is the process itself important, or why is the final result important? What's your thoughts?
I believe that this process allows us to bring a better outcome, a better product, a better project. It's because we are closer to all the partners, the developers, the factory, the academia. So all this all together allow us to bring better results. We are closer from each other.
Thanks.
Yeah, looking at the process, I think I usually visualize smart housing as not only having a helicopter view, but actually a mothership view of the whole society itself. And thereby everything is within the process. Even a final result is on its way in another process, which is in another process. So the process never ends somehow. Therefore, I really love the way when we think and work according to a process way, so to say. And also what I think we have done quite successfully within the smart housing cluster is also by prototyping and making small prototypes and showing them. Visionary, for example, you show them on stage. We could have shown today on this show, for example, and where you sort of even you want to make things people think a bit more, and you want to even provoke them, and therefore we even can call them prototypes, not only prototypes, so to say.
Reflections?
No, but I think this is part of the thinking. I mean, Mikael is a scientist. He thinks of the more theoretical pieces. I'm more of an entrepreneur. I need results, and that's the meeting that makes it interesting.
Yeah. Good. Like that. Thank you. I'm moving on to innovation. It's not only technology, products and services. It's also a question of change of behavior and different mindsets. It has been mentioned before, but how to balance or add in those behavior and mindset changes into the innovation process. How is that dealt with? Mikael, would you like to start?
I think it's very important now to focus on not only technology when we talk about innovations, not only on smarter services and so on, but because we have to think about how we live, how we act, and what we do. And in that way, we need to join forces and work cross-disciplinary and co-creative ways, so that we understand each other, because otherwise we can never change the attitude and behavior of people and actually mankind.
Linda, any comments, reflections?
I mean, I think you mean the behavior when you work in smart housing and in projects. But I think that if you come into an environment where you know that everyone is there because they want to develop, they want to take their own companies and the society a step forward, it's a total different setting to work in than when you sit in a project and you don't really know how much are the others just counting money, how much are the others thinking sustainability and moving forward with society as well. It's different thinking, and that in itself, just to know that, makes you more relaxed in daring to present ideas and to come up with brave thoughts.
Spontaneously, how common is it in your industry to have this wider scope for you architects to add in behavioral changes and mindsets? Is that normal nowadays?
Yeah, it's normal. Architects do that a lot. And we do it in most projects. But again, it's different when you know that everyone else wants the same thing a lot and maybe more than you do. It gives a different setting.
We move on to the aspect that smart housing is involved in the setup of a new housing fair influenced by new European Bauhaus and also a few of the region's development plans. And that's a more or less a new thing to smart housing and a new step. And I'm curious here to listen to what you think about, is that a natural step for smart housing to be a part of that kind of new type of housing fair? What do you say, Linda?
I think it's an interesting thing to test because, again, to heading for a realized project, and that gives you a more innovative and more true process, I would say. And then I think it's a very interesting thought that is now that we should do several housing fairs. I don't know if that has been done before in the same area, so that's something new, so that could be good. It's also a thing I've been thinking of a lot those years in the in development of housing or residential buildings or anything with estates. You do a project once and then you do a new project and a new project, but you start from zero all the time. Maybe if you do a housing fair and do them several times, you can develop the ideas instead of just restarting it again. So I think that is an interesting aspect.
Good. And if I rephrase my question to JP, would you like every second year to have a H6 and then a H7 2 years later and then a H8 and so on?
That would be my dream.
That would be good.
I leave the quest to these guys on my side from the board of Smart Housing. I really think we need to be in the fair. It's fundamental for our development, for our keep on trying to push the limits and come back with new solutions, and the fair is the right place to be. So I'm really looking forward for you guys to nail this out.
Good. Mikael, your comments on our colleagues?
Yeah, I mean the fair, it's a almost ideal way of doing this, looking at life itself, and not only on the buildings, which has been the focus in most fairs traditionally the last 100 years, not only in Sweden, but we look at where we live, what we do. It's the surrounding areas, and also we have that possibility to do this according to the new European Bauhaus pillars, together sustainable and beautiful. It's perfect because we have roughly worked like that since the start of the cluster in 2013, according to that. And sometimes when I describe new European Bauhaus, I usually say, if you know what smart housing is, it's roughly Smart Housing Europe. Or if we put it the other way, European Bauhaus, smart housing is a new Swedish Bauhaus, somehow.
Thank you. And I'm thinking the next question could be like, in what way is Smart Housing well prepared as being an organizer and taking the lead in this kind of large project within the new European Bauhaus? Is Smart Housing a good body to handle that kind of ambitions and projects?
Yeah, I mean, now there is the possibility to start lighthouses within the European Bauhaus movement started by European Union in the Green Deal 1 or 2 years ago. And it's actually, we do this by creating this fair methodology or apparatus or creature, call it whatever you want. We still seek the actual name for it, really. But what is fascinating is the methodology. That's the process. That's what we are developing. And once we nail it, like JP said, then it will be a huge success with several fairs being planned and placed year after year in different stages and in different phases and in different places. That will be a fascinating time to watch.
We look forward to that for sure. One of the core values in this new European Bauhaus is the word together. And I'm thinking that has been part of the Smart Housing setup for some years. So my question would be, how could architects and scientists, like you represent, contribute to the perspective of together?
I would like to stress also that it's very good and very important that we meet early in the process together. One organization thinks it all starts with me. Another organization says it all starts with me. And another organization says it all starts with me. But actually, it all starts with us coming together in the first very meeting, so to say. And there we have to have all these views on the challenge we are facing. Large or small, doesn't matter.
One other aspect I'm thinking and prepared was, what is the general driving force for a company like Tengbom's as an architect bureau to be involved in this kind of cluster, and what's the added, what's the part of your organization to have this connection for many years, over 10 years by now? Linda, what's the driving force?
It is a bit tricky because it's very easy to go into research and design projects that just ends with not really a business for us. So when we go in as a private company, we need to think somehow that this will lead to businesses in one way or the other. And I think that's why Smart Housing has worked for us, because it has led to several real projects and to good contacts with new clients for us that we wouldn't have met otherwise. But we need something, and to get other private companies to come into those kind of environments, that's need to be a trigger. You need to find partners, clients, and projects together.
We are now in the final phase where we do some kind of a conclusion or a summary of what we have been listening to in your presentations in the early phase and later on in the dialogue, and maybe to take one small step outside our plans. I'd like to address to Linda and JP. What do you bring with you from our dialogue? What's the most valuable aspect we have been discussing, or things you bring back to the office and your colleagues? Linda, what's your comment on that?
I would say that one thing is this thing about open source, that they would call it in other kind of businesses, but that's something you have to train on. I mean, companies are often built to hide, even academies and scientists. You should hold your results for yourself before you can publish it. But in Smart Housing, we learned that we have to share from the beginning. Otherwise, it will not be any innovations. I think that is really important. And I lost the rest. I can come in later.
You're welcome back later. What's your take after this discussion, JP?
Yeah, I probably would go back to my teams, the people that I work with, to really say for them to invest in cooperation. I mean, it leads to something they don't expect probably, and it might make things easier. So again, as we have been saying a lot today, together might make it easier.
Good. Mikael, what's your take and summarize on this dialogue we've been having now?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting discussion, and hearing and discussing it together, I realized that this co-creative process with which we actually created the smart housing cluster itself was a co-creative process also, where all met together, all different actors and organizations and competences. And now we refine it within our work, and we refine the process, and the next is to come, so to say. So I eagerly await the future for smart housing.
Thank you. And I now like to conclude that to listen to your reflections and how the start and everything has happened in the H6 project up until now, and things that is still alive and moving has been a very interesting trip or dialogue to take part of here. And there is, I know, many similar projects within the smart housing that will deliver similar and different kind of innovation results, and having also interesting processes that we could take part of in upcoming discussions like this. So there is more to come. And I'd like to say thank you to the three of you, Linda, Camara and JP from Tengboms, and Mikael from Smart Housing, for preparing and take part in this dialogue. Thank you to all of you. And thanks to the audience that have been listening and hopefully being part of the chat. And you could still be part of the chat during this Swedish Innovation Week to have a dialogue with us within the family of Smart Housing. And the Smart Housing family still likes to have meetings digitally or physically the upcoming days and years, because we will be up and kicking within the innovation processes for many years ahead from now. Thank you for listening, and bye for now.